Hello, I am going to do another video. I'm addicted to this whole process. Um, this will probably fall under the soul bearing category. Um, Before I get into that, I just want to thank everybody who's watching, who's been watching. Um, there aren't a lot of you, but I appreciate you. Um, yeah, um, get some good feedback on Facebook. I really don't get any feedback on here, and I understand. I mean, YouTube comment sections have a bad reputation, and rightfully so. Um, but uh, you know, like I said, I'm down with freedom of speech, but it is my forum, so you can leave me nasty comments if you feel inclined. I don't want you to, but I mean, if that's how you genuinely feel, I think, and like I said many times, I'll repudiate them forcefully. My bears drive me crazy. I'll repudiate them forcefully, and then I'll delete them. So that way, the embarrassment to you is minimal. It's only going to last a short time. But the embarrassment to me will last forever in here. No, I'm kidding. So, just kind of pondering. I'm picking up my pace slightly in the last few days as far as work, day job work. Um, my eBay is just about dead. It's moribund. Um, Mailed out 8 orders yesterday. I think only one of them was over $25 plus shipping. I have one $2 plus shipping order on my desk that just came through last night, and that's it. So I guess the economy is gutting everybody, as the British say, it's gutting us. We're gutted, and that's a dramatic turn of phrase. I like it. But it's I'm thinking that might be it. I mean, I have really high marks on Facebook. I'm on Facebook, mixing up my forums, my platforms here. I have really high marks on eBay. I have a 99.6 or 7%, whatever. And I have about 520 positive comments left. Yeah. But, you know, it's getting discouraging, and I between like depression and stuff I was coping with last month, and then being tired and just kind of getting my physical health a little bit better. Uh, just in general, discouragement, whatever, disaffection, dissociation, every kind of dis you think of, disintegration, maybe. That's coming next, probably. I have not loaded up any new as in new to eBay items to eBay in weeks, quite a few weeks. I think one DVD. Now I'm sitting on quite a few photographed items. I've just been too slack to post them, to write up the entries and post the photo, edit the photos, post the photos, filter the photos, because the camera on my uh, Samsung Galaxy S7, which I know is horribly ancient by most tech people's, um, definitions. And I am technically, sorry, a tech person. As far as I'm a professional. I do it for a living, kind of, and you know, um, so I get it. It doesn't mean I feel guilty or bad or unhip. But when the camera cracked the way it did, which was my own fault, I didn't have a protector on the back of it. But my boss always kids me and ribs me about that, and that won't be an issue this next time, I promise. The AT&T rep has offered me a great deal to switch to AT&T and to get a new phone, and a good deal, kind of a bundle deal. I was hoping to do it in February, but now we're at February. A couple of weeks ago, I realized it was going to be more like April or May. I'm kind of like Joe Biden. I'm like, yeah, well, we'll do it in April. I don't need the money now. Yeah, I don't need the phone you know, that kind of thing. Um, so that's a priority. I have to pay my property tax, which is hovering on overdue status, but I don't think I'll be able to do that until April unless it's substantially more than getting a new phone. Uh, but if my eBay picks up, I will. But I don't know. I just don't know when. I'm up on all my current bills as far as late, no late fees, no whatever. But I have a couple of credit cards looming that I should take care of here in the next few days, and a homeowners association bill due by the 9th. So I'm surviving. It's getting tight. I'm getting on food stamps yet again. I'm gonna try to go through that process on Monday. I hope I don't procrastinate again or something awful doesn't come up again. Um, I don't know. I think it's okay. I got a new peer support counselor after over a year with a nice lady named Karen. Um, and yeah, I got a new peer support lady. That was because Karen retired. Um, she, this lady Abby, I talked to today. Um, she was really cool. So we're gonna try to get together next Monday and work on this food stamp thing. It'll probably take a while to process anyway. But it's going to be quicker than it was when the pandemic started. That kind of ground everything to a halt for quite a long time. I was initially going to do it around that time, about a year ago, when I was having some serious issues. Now I'm intact. I'm making it. I'm working. I'm making an effort. So my biggest albatross to deal with is cleaning my house. I'm really bad about that. I have been bad about it for a couple months now, so I need to work on that. I'm trying to work less, like be scheduled less at the day job, so I can make more time and energy for the house and for eBay to try to add to it to do something now out of desperation. Um, but it's been kind of a back and forth with Target. I don't work for Target directly. I said Target. I don't think I've said the company I work for in any videos, and I still haven't technically. Uh, Another tech pun. So Target is where I work. I work in a Target. I don't work for Target at all. So I do help them out a good bit when my department is dead. Um, I'm getting paid anyway. However, I'm not getting paid nearly as much as Target employees are getting paid. To their credit, they've upped their minimum wage to 15 an hour. It was 13.50 when I started a year and a half ago, and it was raised 13, and it was raised to 15 during the early pandemic, then lowered to 13, then permanently raised to 15 with them. And I'm glad they need to do that. They took a page from the Bezos clash with Senator Sanders, who embarrassed Bezos, aka Lex Luthor, into raising Amazon workers' wages. You don't have to work as hard at Target as you do at Amazon. My buddy, well, I'm not going to name any names because I don't know if he wants me to know. People know where he works. A good friend of mine, works for Amazon part time. Um, I like Target though. I like the atmosphere, which I was wary about getting back to work for a corporate entity. Um, had a lot of issues in that area. Um, it's just never meshed with my personality. Though weirdly, I'm good at retail. I'm good with people, which is weird because I used to be so shy. I was practically autistic myself, and I used to be so self-conscious. And but I took some good advice from a longtime friend of mine, Vincent Black. Vincent Black, ladies and gentlemen, Vincent Black. Um, I doubt he's going to see this video, but if he does, groovy. So I am occasionally in touch with this individual. Uh, I'll just quickly tell you the Vincent Black saga. Um, I met Vincent well, I had a little, indie comics company, so to speak, of my own, called Dynamite Comics, which was an extension of the work I'd done with my childhood best friend Thomas Davis, which he did most of the work. But he kind of nudged me out of my shell. I mean, I was an artistic person. My creativity, I was creative, but I was highly derivative. Now Thomas was kind of derivative too. I mean, we were little kids, right? Well, he left here when he left Charlotte. I guess I was 11, but we'd been friends for several years. He was almost a year older than me. But Thomas, he was derivative too. We were little kids, but he always put a spin on something. He had this incredible energy, and this kind of he was kind of like my Jack Kirby, like a Jack Kirby that I knew personally. He could just pop out ideas and concepts like all day long. I've probably talked about him quite a bit on my What is Flickr Street video, the first couple of videos. What the hell is Flickr Street? Sorry, I'm censoring myself now. That way they don't have to. But Thomas, so if I'm retreading all this, I apologize, but I know a lot of you haven't seen those videos. A lot of my current regular watchers, they actually had quite a few views, though the Flickr Street series kind of completely planed out now. I'm lucky to get like 4 or 5 views on any Flickr Street material, but I get it. I'm not an established property, and me talking about it, it is connecting it with people faster than trying to write about it or post about it. But it's not as immediate as putting my artwork of my characters out there. If I could do a Flickr Street music album, I guess, I would do one. Though it's funny because a lot of my characters are musicians. A lot of my major characters are musicians. I don't know how that kind of worked out. I was in kind of a rock metal music frenzy in the mid 80s and late 80s. Then I expanded into other kinds of music. But those are my top. And I was just the whole thing, the bands, the look, their instruments, the band's lineups. That kind of was an obsession with me. And so it was something I learned quite a bit about. And I had friends in bands. I went to shows. So, I tried to dress kind of like the bands were back then. I mean, obviously I've always favored the big hair. That was a staple among new wave and metal bands. Even though I have a lot less of it, it's still kind of goofy, But so that kind of that had a tremendous, permanent, profound influence on creating a lot of my characters. But anyway, I've gone way off the rails, reeling me in. So I should stop quoting her because bad. Good memories, painful memories because they're good, not bad. So, and I'm doing Soulberry, so I can toss that in there and not feel off topic. So what evolved into Flickr Street was originally called Dynamite Comics, and after Thomas moved away, I decided to have kind of the Charlotte branch of Flickr Street. And I began recruiting friends of mine who were interested in comics, interested in doing comics, interested in writing or doing art. Very few of them were very talented at any of those things. Actually, most of the people I recruited were extremely untalented at all of those things. But they were my friends, and they liked comics. So I just figured at the very least, my incredible charisma would just compel them to work with me for free. I mean, what's funny is I really that did help me come out of my shell a good bit doing that enterprise. I did it for 2 years, from 85 to wait a minute, I'm sorry, 82 to 84. Fall of 1982 to I guess late 1984, summer 1984. I finally gave up on it, the endeavor. But kind of. I went into other areas with the same medium, but I just didn't have an organized situation where I was like the main figure. But Thomas was also, not only was he my Jack Kirby, he was also my Stan Lee. So he was like way out he lived in he lived in Missouri, and I can't remember the town. He was near Kansas City. Oh man, I can't believe I've forgotten that. All the letters I wrote that guy. And this was way before the internet, or at least before the internet as we know it. A good bit. Uh, but he was like Stan Lee too. He was like the chief that I was like reporting into, the big chief of the corporation, and I was like uh, conducting his will, exercising his powers over the Charlotte Bureau. And he and I both, we kind of both were amused by that. I mean, I think he was amused by it. I took it very seriously, and I did kind of use it against the members sometimes because it was, Thomas was like this mysterious figure. He was like Charlie and Charlie's Angels or something, or Diane in Twin Peaks before the return. Uh, we're not sure if he exists or not, but he's the boss. And because people didn't have very good attention spans at that age, and maybe they had undiagnosed ADHD. That was not a thing when I was that age. I mean, it was not an official movement to label it as such. Um, so these guys would get really, and guys, of course, no females back then were into this. Well, no females that I knew of in my part of the country were into this stuff. I'm going to qualify that with absolute truth rather than an allusion that can be misconstrued or maybe be an actor. I'm trying to do that. Like when I do these movie reviews and I say that actor, I can't remember his name, I would rather just do that, ask for a correction in the comments than lie, because this world is festooned with liars right now. And it's out of hand. It's out of control. A lot of them don't mean to be liars, but they willingly, knowingly spread misinformation and often disinformation about subjects. Of course, this constitutes a huge amount of internet users and a giant chunk of social media clients or constituents or whatever you want to call them, users of social media. Um, I try not to do those things. The truth hurts, so I'll speak the truth. But I'd rather do the truthful hurt than the truthful hurt than the painful lie than the egregious lie. Um, so, for instance, I don't remember where Thomas lived in Missouri. I'm ashamed of it, but not for the reasons because I don't have the information. It should be in my noggin, but like names of actors in movies and crew members and character names, um, I'm a little ashamed of those things. I should be more um, dedicated, thorough, maybe some would say anal retentive on these videos, the way I used to be in my film journalism and stuff I had published. Though that's a little different. You write something down or you type something out and post, it's forever. But you speak something and yeah, it's kind of forever because I'm recording it. But to me, it's also like speech, and it's you know how I feel about free speech. So Thomas was the boss, and a lot of times I had to discipline these cats because they'd be like making excuses for why they couldn't get something done, or they'd lost interest in this, or they were and I mean, it's nothing I could really do about them. I mean, the only thing I could do, a lot of it was high turnover. Needless to say, even for an antisocial person like me, it was high turnover. Um, so I had to but for the people who I knew wanted to stay, um, I did invoke that authority a few times, and some of them, bought it, and others didn't. And fair enough, it was kind of not true. I mean, I wasn't, fastidiously against lying back then. I didn't really lie with Thomas, but I did misrepresent him with his permission. I don't think he realized to what extent I misrepresented him, but I mean, we rarely talked because, again, this was pre-internet. We did write each other letters regularly. Uh, of course, as with these things, over the years, they became less and less frequent. Uh, but anyway, so I'm getting to Vincent Black, and that's because I'm right at that point with Dynamite Comics. Dynamite Comics, when we disbanded or whatever, um, right before, a few months before, one of the newer people who I really liked, who was a pretty good artist named Jeff Currents, who I met through a founding member. I don't know, he wasn't with us at the very beginning. I met this guy named Christopher Pack very early, like February 1983. Was that right? Something like that. And um, he was about a year younger than me. Um, but he immediately got involved with dynamite, and he wanted to make things darker and edgier than they were. And I did too. I mean, most of the people that we were dealing with, including Thomas, were not really down with that so much. Thomas didn't tell us not to do it, but I gradually started kind of getting into taboo topics, especially during that period in comic books, and especially for my age back then, and which I will not reveal. And it was young, trust me. And the only person in the group who really uh, immediately caught into that, besides myself, ironically, also the only other person who really had any authority in the group and who did invoke Thomas's authority on other people, was the guy JJ I keep mentioning in passing. And I mention him because he was a major factor in these events, but I don't cling to his memory as I would some of these other people, because he's treated me dreadfully for 30 years. Well, I should say he treated me dreadfully for a couple of years, and then he's forgot I existed for almost 30 years. So that's okay. We're in 2021, yeah, 30 years, and it's still, I don't want to say it's painful. It's annoying. I don't, lament the days about him. I don't have any desire to try to make amends or reach out or whatever. He made clear how he feels about people of my social station, and that's what a lot of it was. It was the classism. I was on a low rung in junior high and high school, and um, I don't know. It's weird. I lived in a now very expensive neighborhood, but middle class back then. Now wealthy, almost upper middle class neighborhood. Back then, it was a middle class neighborhood, and we were lower middle class. But some years we were like impoverished. We were on the edge of bankruptcy, and had to help get the credit union help us out, and all this stuff when I was growing up. We were one child household and no pets, and it was hard. My mom didn't work. She worked briefly one time. Um, but so, yeah. So JJ has been kind of a dick. But anyway, he was long gone out of the scene at that time, uh, uh, during the time I'm kind of on the cusp of discussing, which was maybe very early 1984 ish, and probably mid 1984. Early 1984. Chris, who I was starting to talk about, the guy who wanted to make the comics more adult and edgy, because he was a big fan of heavy metal and magazine, and he read Nietzsche, and he listened to kind of death rock. I'm talking way back death rock, before it was called goth in America, and some of the bands like the Doors weren't even death rock, but they were, and Velvet Underground, but they were strong influences, obviously, on the early death rock. So, so he had that field. I mean, I loved Black Sabbath and Blue Oyster Cult and stuff like that, which he did too. Black Sabbath we all loved, JJ, Christopher, and myself. Well, Chris had a friend who wasn't into Black Sabbath, but that's cool. Jeff Currents. They had gone to junior high together. So this was when we were all kind of starting high school, I guess. And Jeff was 2 years younger than me, a year younger than Chris. And Chris had this weird way of speaking. It was kind of this strange polyglot of Ed Norton from not Ed Norton, the actor. I don't know his first name. Norton from the Honeymooners, Art Carney, and Yogi Bear. So he would be like, hey, 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 hey. And I don't know. I don't know what to, he had this bizarre way of talking, and it was, it was very bizarre. It was bizarre. It still is bizarre. Christopher's no longer with us. He passed away in, I guess, 2013. Does that sound right? Maybe even as late as 2014. Yeah, he was just in his early 40s, and in 2014, I believe, and I didn't know about it immediately, but fairly early after it happened. But we weren't in touch anymore. I mean, he was out of my life well before that. But I will honor him because we didn't end on a bad note. You know, unlike JJ, he didn't reject me from his life or look down on me. If anything, Chris needed me a lot and looked up to me, even though I'm a short guy. And he was in trouble with the law. He had some substance abuse issues. That's another story for another day. But the Christopher saga. But he hurt me a lot. He did take advantage of me quite a lot. But we had kind of, I guess, made up in the sense that on the rare occasions I would see him, he would come into my work I had then at Barnes and Noble, and we were always cordial. We would chat about music and comics, but I could sense he wanted more of a connection again and to renew it, maybe a friendship, which he had destroyed. Because basically he ripped me off, and then he, ripped a few people off, and then he went to prison for a year. And after he was out of prison, I didn't want to talk to him, before he went to prison. But I certainly didn't want to talk to him anymore. When he did come out of prison, he came to my house and threatened to hurt me and my roommate, Jeremy, and my cat. Tried to hurt my cat, actually. He was violating parole even being there, and he was a little intoxicated, so he was doubly violating parole. So you could say I wasn't fond of Christopher, but a number of years passed, quite a number, and like I said, yeah, 10, yeah, at least 10 years passed before I started seeing him occasionally at Barnes and Noble. And we were always cordial. It was cool, But like I said, I could tell he wanted to make amends, but I was putting my boundaries up around me, and I was putting out the vibe of do not encroach upon these boundaries. And I felt perfectly fine with that. I was very bad about setting boundaries for myself when I was younger. I let people hurt me and abuse me, and I didn't know any better. I didn't know. I guess it started at home. I didn't really have a choice in that case. Kind of a captive audience there to the parental people doing it. My ex-fiance used to tell me that I was bullied in school so much all the way up to, it was bad all the way up to my junior year in high school. My senior year in high school, it started to kind of pass away a bit. And then after high school, it just stopped, except for very occasionally. And when it did happen, I was not having that. I was not to be messed with. So the good thing about someone like me is I'm not physically threatening to anybody, but because of the way I look and some of the things I'm into, they kind of think I'm a psycho. So they leave me alone a lot of times. People could easily dispatch me with very little effort. And I don't just mean beat me up. I mean, they can annihilate me. But when I was in high school, a lot of kids did try to they did beat me up, and they did try to annihilate me. A couple of times, kids tried to kill me, and for real. And it was scary, and then I guess finding the dark things and the more eccentric things, I felt like I was at home. I felt I was away from that kind of situation. I felt a little more empowered, and I don't even think I knew that word then or what it meant or anything. And I had a great vocabulary, but this kind of stuff wasn't in currency in the mid '80s as it is now. The mid '80s was a period of awakening for a lot of people, but it wasn't quite as liberal as the '70s. And the government, the way the company was ran, and the way corporations were ran, was this conservative, if not more so in ways than it is now. In ways now we're going back to it. We're not progressing, we're regressing to Reagan era vibes. I can wear long hair at my day job now. There are openly gay people walking around Charlotte. So superficially, a lot of progress has been made, but the corporations run things even more than ever. But corporations, they don't make these decisions out of any. I'm paraphrasing Glenn Greenwald here. They don't make these decisions for any moral fortitude in their hearts or souls. They make these decisions based on business models and economics. In other words, we can't really discriminate openly against long-haired weirdos and homosexuals and minorities and blacks and women, because they have money too. They don't have much money, but what they have, we're gonna fucking get our hands on. And so it's kind of like chill, you know. I mean, even in Charlotte, I mean, it's been this way in other cities, of course, for decades, but it took a very long time. Just in the last 15 years at most, the thing, while I was working at Borders, which is between 2001 and 2008, during that period, uh, ironically, the Bush years, things started becoming uh, a lot more liberal in Charlotte. Finally, the trickle down effect, and so yeah. Um, anyway, Chris is dead, and we ended on a conciliatory note, I guess. But he had introduced me to Jeff Currents, and Jeff Currents was a young biracial gentleman who went to another high school than me, and we got to talking on the phone quite a lot. And then he joined up with the Dynamite Comics. Weren't many of us left back by that point. Christopher Pack was one of them that I talked about. This kid Jack Garcia, I knew. I don't have any idea what's become of him. Myself, and then my good buddy Doug Williams, ladies and gentlemen, Doug Williams. Doug Williams is out there. We are friends now. We did lose touch for about 20 years, somewhere in there. Great guy. You know, as more and more of the core people started to leave, or I fell out with them, or them with me, or mutual dumping, like Thor said, I became to depend on Doug a lot more, and on Chris. They had been there. Well, Chris had been there all along. Doug had been there most of the time. And Doug was a really good artist, better artist than me at that time, certainly. I don't know about now, and I don't. Last time I showed him my art a couple of years ago, he didn't agree with that assessment that he had been better than me, but that's not probably just sheer humility, you know. But facts are facts, baby. Anyway, I even based a character, minor character called the Kraken on an idea of his that he had brought to me back then, and well after he had gone, we were still in touch a bit, but he'd gone away from comics and away from art, visual art, and done stuff like stand up comedy and music, and he's been now doing music for a number of years. He has a really good band, the Willie Douglas Band. I haven't met the whole band, otherwise I'd go the Willie Douglas Band, ladies and gentlemen. But Doug, yeah, he was a great guy. He is a great guy. He just got a new girlfriend who, ironically, was a girl that was the JJ, the aforementioned JJ, was madly sexually obsessed with in high school or junior high, maybe junior high and high school. And Charlotte is a very small town. A lot of people, I mean, even though it's a huge city now, as far as us few who have been here for the long haul in Charlotte, it's a very internecine kind of deal. It's kind of incestuous. So, I'm not sure if they knew each other in the past or not, but I've been meaning to comment to Doug about that JJ, Doug's girlfriend connection. Well, it wasn't really a connection. It was the one-sided. And I'm not knocking JJ because he's married now, and I'm married and divorced. But I mean, back then neither of us could get women at all, and we're both very prudish in a lot of ways about sex. I don't know about him, but I'm not remotely like that now. But yeah. So Doug, Christopher, Jeff, Vincent. So there's a trail. So there's me, Christopher, Douglas, Jack, and Jeff. So us five, that was more than enough. We got down to business, and we were mainly at that time we shifted quite a bit from the writing being the main emphasis as it was when JJ was in the group. The writing being the main influence and main focus, and the art became the main focus because not a lot, but of the few, very, very few who tried to write with me, really just JJ and this one other guy, who would be a whole nother story to get into him. Someone I'm not fond of, also, um, but uh, me and those two guys, and of course, whatever input we'd get from Thomas from time to time, that was the writing team. Everyone else was trying to do art and abet and assist and do kind of secretarial duties and just talk on the phone and bullshit about things and gossip among ourselves, and because we were all kind of social misfits. Um, Chris got me into the Misfits, actually. Hey, the Misfits, Glenn Danzig. So I'd never heard of the Misfits before he told me about them. I had seen one of their albums. This was while they were still together the first time. The real Misfits with Glenn Danzig, and I remember I saw it at a record store, and I was a big metalhead and rocker back then. And I dipped into stuff like Prince and things, but I wasn't into punk. I had a bad idea of punk, and I saw the album, and they had a song called Angel Fuck. The album's Legacy of Brutality. That's a brilliant fucking album. But think about this, way back then, young Henry, and he's like, Angel Fuck. I was a Christian too. I wasn't dogmatic or orthodox, or, I hated church. I was never confirmed in a church, but I was baptized as an Episcopalian. Went to the same church as JJ, actually, ironically. But Episcopals are pretty stuck up. They're kind of like the poor man's Catholic, so uh, they have a complex. They know they're not Catholics, are kind of wannabes, but at the same time, they're better than those other Protestants. This is all such nonsense. No offense to any of my viewers who are Christian, but honestly, this stuff has no relevance to our lives whatsoever. It's so silly tribalism, and same with politics, as you've guessed. I just don't come off as hard about religion because religious people in general, thanks to the Republican right and far right conservatives and the televangelists and such, have made it taboo to be Christian in a lot of ways. And okay, well, if I were Christian, I would stop using that term, that label to describe myself. I would pull back, but that's just me. Some people still proudly wear it and say I'm a real Christian, and they're not, and that's cool. But to me, those are all kind of labels, just like your political party affiliation, etc. It doesn't. None of it. Well, your political affiliation actually does have a correlation, unfortunately, with if you can eat or make rent. But religion doesn't. I mean, I'm talking about a tangible, empirical evidence. I'm not talking about spiritual nourishment. I totally get that, believe me. But anyway, that was church. Yeah. So Jeff introduced me over the phone to a friend of his named, you guessed it, Vincent Black. I'm going to wrap this up pretty quick, actually, really the next few minutes. I don't want to get near an hour because I know y'all are having trouble following me anyway, and I'm not saying it's because I'm saying anything particularly, highfalutin or complex. It's just I'm all over the map. I'm a little hyper, but I'm kind of well rested today and medicated, so, but not an alcoholic, I promise. But Vincent was a Christian, actually, ironically, so it all ties in. He still is a Christian. He's more of a Christian now, heavily, than he was then. But so he and I don't relate on that level. When I occasionally speak with him. But anyway, he was also a musician and an artist and a big comic fan. Loved Marvel. Was into animation, or as called it back then, Japanimation. That's what everyone called it. This was before we knew the word anime or the word manga. I already knew the word manga from World Encyclopedia of Comics. I read it as a little kid, but I thought it was pronounced manga, and I kind of knew it was Japanese comics, but I didn't know anything about the animated. So I didn't know I'd already watched anime, by seeing Speed Racer on TV. In our market, we didn't get a lot of great anime. We didn't get Kimba the White Lion. We did in North Carolina, but not anywhere near Charlotte. We didn't get all the other ones. There weren't a lot, but on Gigantor, and there were a few. We didn't get any of them except Speed Racer, but I was a big Speed Racer fan, but I didn't know it was anime. I didn't know it was Japanese actually when I was first saw it. I mean, I was extremely young. I just knew, hey, it's this cool show that comes on after Spider-Man, and um, Vincent was very into that. It influenced his artwork to an extent, and also Jeff to an extent. Jeff was also into anime, not quite as heavy as Vincent, but pretty heavy. And Vincent would order like videos and maybe books. I can't remember, untranslated, uh, usually with subtitles, but sometimes not. Through Heroes Aren't Hard to Find, which is the premier comic store of the Carolinas. And it is. Heroes has done a lot for the industry. Heroes Con, for a short time, was like the second or third biggest comic convention in America for several years. And then Wizard started buying ones like the Chicago Con and such. So the Wizard cons started filling like the 2, 3, 4 slots. Heroes was about 5. This was in the day when there were conventions. God, so weird. The end of an era. So obviously they didn't have a Heroes Con in 2020. I haven't been to one since 2014, but I went for many years. I knew Shelton, the founder of Heroes, since I was 9 years old, which was pre-Heroes, the comic book store, but by a few years. Well, no, yeah, just a few. Um, and not long after he opened the store, he started the Heroes Con. His first guest at the first con was Stan Lee, which was a huge thing back then to get Stan Lee at a convention, and much less to get him in Charlotte, North Carolina to a convention. But I could go on a whole tangent about Heroes and all that stuff, but I won't. Vincent was into that stuff. He was enmeshed in that world, so we hit it off. And Vincent also had trouble with girls, and he was a small guy, and he was black, and he was just incredibly cool and very into Prince, very also into Michael Jackson, which I'm not, but he loved MJ and Prince. Those were his guys, and they still are. And we did bond quite heavily, and Prince passed away. So Vincent didn't want to join Dynamite. He kind of wanted to do some comics on his own or with Jeff. They had been starting doing some ideas together, and he wanted me to get involved in it. And he wanted Chris Pack to get involved with it, but I was like, Chris was like, I don't know, we're doing Dynamite, I don't know. But Dynamite was kind of, it was fading, it was eroding. I was becoming disillusioned, but not with the guys that were with me till the end. I loved those guys. I mean, they were like the most loyal, incredible people I'd known in my life up to that time. Thomas was gone, and JJ had been my best friend, and he kind of ditched me. We later became really good friends again, and we did comics ideas together, and story ideas, which eventually evolved into what I'm doing, Flicker Street, but that didn't evolve into that until the 1990s. But the thing is, I could sense things were shifting, and it was time to just shift paradigms, so to speak. There was a comfort to having that universe as your kind of umbrella under which to work. But then, I was meeting these younger people, and there was more art involved than just sheer writing. And so I was like, yeah, I mean, we can actually publish comics. And back then I drew like constantly. It's nothing like today when it takes me forever to finish one nice finished piece. I mean, I was finishing at least, several finished decent pieces a day for years when I was young. I didn't have any social life whatsoever, really, other than these kind of guys I talked to on the phone. I never went out. I didn't date. I didn't do drugs. It was kind of pathetic. I loved music, but I hadn't quite started going to concerts yet. That came like right after high school. I started going to concerts a lot, or shows, whatever. So Dynamite ended, and I started a new enterprise, and Vincent was kind of the leader of this project. It was called the Four Aces, and Vincent, Jeff, me, and Chris. And actually, Chris was not one of the Four Aces. He was the wild card. That's actually what he called his character. They were like 4 characters based on cards. And, about a year later, I discovered them. They may have already come out, but about a year later, I discovered the wild card books by George R.R. Martin, way before Game of Thrones. and I thought they were great. By that time, we weren't working on the four aces, so it was kind of a moot issue. But in those pre George R. R. Martin days of yore, um, Chris was the wild card, and then we each had a four aces. Our fourth ace, is me, Vincent, Jeff, but there's also this guy named Derek, and Derek and I had become friends on the phone, and then during the summer, well, no, yeah, right. Oh, the four aces came a little later than I thought it was. Four aces was kind of my senior in high school, but not right away. I think I took a break from trying to do anything related to comics, uh, at least the first half of my senior year, and I was drawing. I was still doing art constantly. My art was getting better and better, but I wasn't in the mood to write any new stories. I wasn't doing anything with Dynamite characters. I was still in touch with Thomas, but not as often. And when I split things up here, he didn't seem that concerned, and that kind of, I guess, hurt my feelings. I don't know. I'm a cancer. I mean, pre-medication, cancer, teenager. There you go. Everything hurts your feelings. Um, so yeah, it was probably closer to graduation. Um, Actually, I don't know if I knew Vincent back then. Yeah, well, I did know Jeff. I did know Jeff obviously for a long time, but I don't think I actually met Vincent till near the end of my senior year. Now that I think about it, but Jeff introduced me to him. That's the point. And Jeff and I remained friends after Dynamite went asunder. That's the other major point. And Chris and Jeff and I were still friends. So, and I was still friends with Doug, but Doug didn't really want to work on us kind of more comics with us, and that's totally fine. I don't know whatever became of Jack, to be honest. But he graduated a year or two after me. Um, so around graduation time, a couple months before, I knew Vincent over the phone, and then we met in person. He came over to my house, and then I hung out with him and Jeff a few times. They came to my high school graduation, and then that summer we hung out a lot, quite a lot. I hung out quite a lot with both of them, um, and with Chris, of course, and with Derek. I forgot how I met Derek over the phone. Who introduced me to Derek or got me? They lived way off in this part of town called Forest Pawtucket, which is kind of like Redneckville. And, there's a lot of redneck metalheads in that hood. And Derek was definitely atypical for those kind of people. Um, Derek did his own comics too. And so we decided to all kind of work together. So, like the summer after graduation, yeah, we did the four aces. And I used to have a giant pad that I used for this art class I took that summer at this place called Spirit Square downtown. I don't know if it still exists or not. And I took a private art class, and that was great. And in this same big sketchbook, I drew and inked. And by that time, I was getting so good with inking that I did it all by. But that was my goal: is to do it all by brush, no styluses. Hadn't quite gotten into rapidograph, my brief period with rapidograph then. But I was doing all brush and really fine work. And of course, my favorite inker was John Toddleton, who's an absolute master. Absolute master. I don't even know how to express it beyond that. Huge influence on my art. A complete gigantic influence on me. And I've never met him, unfortunately. My one chance to meet him was in 2018, and it got squandered, and it really was sad. He actually came to Heroes Con, and he's had some vision issues over the years, and that's kind of distressing. Um, so with an ink and a brush, I did this character, the Ace of Hearts. So that's long gone. I lost all that art in my move 5 years ago. Um, Sad. So I can't do emoticons on here, so I'm just saying the emotions, summing them up in words, one word. Um, Ace of Hearts is my character. Vincent was the Ace of Spades, I guess. And neither of us were listening to Motorhead. I did start listening to Motorhead not much later. That's a whole nother story. And then the I don't know, the Ace of Clubs was Derek. I can't remember what Jeff's character was called. Damn it, Diamonds? Maybe. I'm not sure. But anyway, they were the four aces. It was a pretty limited concept, but it got us drawing. we each drew our own character, or in Derek's case, he didn't draw, so he got me to design the Ace of Clubs. He got me to design several of his characters for him, and kind of co-create them. And one idea that did spring out of our collaboration was this character Curio, ultimately, who is a major character in the Flicker Street reality. And I've done a modern finished portrait of him, and you can see it on my Facebook page, you can see it on my DeviantArt page. Plug. I don't have the stuff with me up here. I would just put it in front of the screen. So even though I'm completely out of touch with them, Derek Townsend, ladies and gentlemen, Derek Townsend. So that's what we did, and then it didn't last very long. But Vincent and I stayed friends, and he was very loyal. He was a good buddy. And I think we finally kind of lost touch. I was still living at home. It was like the early 90s, like 90, 91 maybe. I moved out in 92. And, by the time I had moved out, I think I'd finally completely lost touch with Vincent. I mean, he would call my parents' house once in a while, but I don't remember ever talking to him in my new place. I ran into him out of all places, Target, in like 1996. And we started talking about anime. I was with my then girlfriend, and I don't know. I mean, when we talked, it did feel like maybe we weren't quite on the same plane anymore. And then I ran into him at Barnes and Noble in early '98, and he was talking about his religious journey or whatever, and I knew we were on a different plane, not a better or worse, just totally different path. So I didn't really pursue anything with him, but we did refriend on Facebook, and we have intermittently been in contact. We did hang out one day in 2018, and that was enjoyable, very enjoyable. I showed him my current artwork and everything, and we kind of reminisced about some of this very stuff. So that was kind of the Vincent Black saga, but it was also kind of the Christopher Pack saga, the Thomas Davis saga. Dip into religion and politics, all kinds of stuff. I'm just all over the map, but I'm coming at it more emotionally today because my emotions have been they've been less intense than recently because I had gotten involved with somebody, and that's kind of fading away from what I can tell. But it did make a major impact on me. It's helped me a lot. It's helped me reconsider and rethink a lot of things about the situation with my ex-fiance, and just a lot of things about relationships in general. A lot of sometimes hard realities to face about myself and relationships in general, women, and not want to say women in general, but women in relationships with me, certainly the kind that I'm attracted to or attracted to me, and just choices people make. And it's been an arduous journey. Not enough ardor though. So, I mean, there's a little bit of art. There was a lot of ardor for a while there, but it's settled down. It cooled off. So, at least from what I can discern, anyway, I'm kind of reforging some kind of path alone. I guess, but I'm not going to stand in limbo like I was over some other situations, especially my ex-fiance. I still have maybe not a whole foot, but I still have a few toes in that limbo with her. And, that's just in my head, and that's just something I still have to sort out. But I got a new therapist, so, I've started the communication process, but we haven't had a formal session yet. So I'm hoping by next week we will, unless something else goes wrong or whatever, or if I get too depressed to go see my therapist. But, I think after a session or two, we'll switch to the telephone and or the Zoom, video chat like I was doing with my now departed therapist. So that's all I've got today. I've drained myself dry for the time being. I promise soon I'll get back to some heavily themed, more pertinent, relevant kind of stuff, more interesting topics than just random philosophizing and autobiographical nonsense. But thanks again for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't. But please leave me thumbs up if you like this. If you don't like this, then that's fine. But if you that's cool. But if you do like it, leave a thumbs up, because my last couple of videos I've been practically begging for thumbs ups, and some of the same people I know are watching, and some of the people who always watch, who the handful who always give me thumbs up, are still doing it. But some of the people I know are watching aren't doing it. So I don't know if, again, it's just not habit for a lot of people. It took me a long time to get into the habit of doing that, with pages, and with posts. So I get it, but maybe they genuinely don't like what I'm doing. So it's weird when you get the views, but like I said, you'll register a view if you get like a third of the way through the video. So I don't know. Maybe people are kind of like, well, I'm gonna check in on Covert again and one more time, see if he's got anything worthwhile to say this time. Nah, I couldn't handle a half hour, much less an hour. I'm bailing again. I'll check on him when he's got a new one up. So those are views. So but they're not thumbs up. We got to get with these algorithms. They're controlling our lives. I mean, of course, ideally, I'd like to just dispense with this whole system as it is. But I guess I'm a slave, a victim of capitalism, like everyone else, for now anyway. So take care.